Hey everybody, welcome back to 10-Minute Leadership Talks. Now, if you watched the previous video, which is lesson 5 on management, you heard me say that concludes the scheduled lessons. So from here on out, we're going to do what's called supplements. I'm just going to title them supplements 1 through however many we have. And what these are going to be adding on to anything that we talked about in the lessons based off of the questions from students. If anybody, send me a message saying, hey, I remember we talked about this lesson in class. I think this would be good. I'm going to throw them all into supplements. There's not going to be any rhyme or reason to them. It's just going to be however they come up through messages or through comments, whatever it might be. And then we're just going to talk about some of the added topics based off of those questions. So just a reminder that if you are new to this, go ahead and watch the videos from 0 through 5 first. Make sure you start with that introduction. It's going to give you a little bit of insight on what we're doing here, or what the videos are about. And don't forget to read the bio and the description in both the playlist and the channel itself, because that'll give you some additional background information. And again, I have to remember to say that this is not necessarily a reflection of the Marine Corps or the United States of America or their viewpoints. This is own personal opinions and viewpoints on what we're talking about. So, supplement 1. Some of the big questions I've gotten are some reminders of classes that we talked about. Ways to improve fitness. So going back to expectations, which was lesson 1, fitness is one of my 3 sort of expectations. And if you remember then, fitness is not just physical fitness. It's what everybody normally thinks about when you talk about fitness. We're talking about spiritual fitness, mental fitness, emotional fitness, and then physical fitness is still a big part of that. So one of the questions I get a lot is, what are some recommended ways to improve that fitness? So exercise is a big thing, and that's not just physical. So you can exercise your brain, you can exercise your spirit. So if we're talking about religion with regard to spiritual wellness, then reading religious documents or going to church or being part of a service, whatever it is. And I'm not trying to push anybody into a specific direction, but definitely find something that works for you and something that you believe in, and work on that and get better at it. It's always something that we can improve on, is sort of our spiritual wellness. Mental exercise, so reading is a big thing. I'm not the best reader. I don't really love reading books. I like reading articles, and in my opinion, if you just read something, you're increasing your mental awareness and exercising your brain a little bit. So if you like sports, then read some sports articles. If you like publications or documents or whatever it might be based off your job, then read that, or read anecdotes or stories from people who have been successful in the job field that you're in. Whatever it is you want to read, just read. That's working your brain and getting things out there. And then do puzzles and stuff. And I'm not just talking about on-board puzzles, which those are good too, but games are really cool. Everybody has something on their phone, like a game on their phone that they do puzzles with, or number games, whatever it might be. Those are good to kind of sharpen your mind and keep you focused a little bit. And then they're fun, so it's something I definitely recommend. And then we do have to talk about the physical aspect of it, right? So keep yourself busy. I'm not going to talk about the chemistry or the scientific side of exercise much, because I'm not a chemist or a scientist or anything like that, but I do know that it makes you feel good. So physical fitness is not only good for your actual body and physical capability, but it's good for your mind, it's good for your heart. So getting that out there and doing something physical is really good for you. One thing I always recommend, so me and my wife, we go on a walk at least once a day, probably twice a day now with everything going on, but I highly recommend doing that, and for a few reasons. Number 1 is going to be the physical aspect of it. If you walk through 3 to 6 to 10 miles, whatever it might be, if you go for a hike, it's good for your body, right? Keeps your heart rate up a little bit, get some good exercise. But the other thing I really like about walking is that it's kind of the only exercise you can do with a partner that you can talk during. So what we kind of use that walk for is not only the exercise part, but we also like to talk about our days. So this is our chance to vent. If something happened that day that we didn't love, or it was a rough day, then we use that walking time to vent. And then our rule is, once we come home from our walk, we're not complaining anymore. So we get our complaints out on our walk, and then when we come back, we're just focused on each other, or whatever we want to do at home. That's something I would really recommend, and something that we kind of came up with, because if you just sit at home and you complain all day when you get home about work, and then you wake up and you go to work, it's just a really bad cycle to get into. So it was something that we started doing really early on in our marriage, and it's worked well for us, and we hopefully can continue it as long as we are able to. So that walking thing is really good. But if you go to the gym, do whatever you want, go for runs, it's good for all kinds of stuff, not just physical fitness, but mental fitness and that kind of awareness. So those are ways to improve. And then especially that walking thing, but a lot of these other things are good for that family lifestyle too. So I'm not a parent, I don't have kids, but I hope to be one day, and the walking thing we hope to do with our kids, right? So bring them along, put them in the stroller, walk them around. If you like playing sports with them or playing catch, going outside, just getting some fresh air, those are definitely ways to increase that kind of family fitness and that family lifestyle. So definitely work on that, and that's one of the ways we like to improve fitness. And another way is just be social. So we've talked about this a little bit in previous lessons, but one of the things that I like to do is just hearing opinions from other people, and you don't have to agree with you completely. You don't have to always surround yourself with people that think the exact same way as you. In fact, I would challenge you to not be that way, because you're not going to grow. You're not going to see other perspectives. But just being social and going to see people and meet new people who come from different backgrounds, or weren't raised the same way, or didn't grow up in the same town or state or even region of the country as you. I highly recommend going out and reaching out to those people and finding some folks that are, might have some different backgrounds. That's kind of what I mean by being social. I know everybody's different. Everybody's not an extrovert. You don't love spending time with people. So I'm not saying like you have to spend all of your free time hanging out with other folks. Although, obviously find some friends and do stuff on the regular. That I would definitely recommend doing that. But just talk about things. I think a huge misconception in our world is that you should never talk about religion or politics. I hear that all the time. I don't think you should talk about that a lot, but I do think it's worth talking about every now and then. We talked about finding new ideas or new perspectives, so that's definitely part of it. But if you never talk, if you never discuss those things, which are pretty big deals, religion and politics are pretty up there on the how much it impacts your life scale. And if you never talk about it, then you're never gonna change your mindset or reaffirm your mindset maybe. So I might have to change your mindset, but maybe you say, hey, there's another example of something that worked really well, and that reaffirms like what we're doing is the right thing or is helping out. So definitely be social and open to those ideas. Okay, another big question we got is team building. Like, how do I build my team, or how do I become a more cohesive unit? The first thing I'll say is sports and games. So I'm a jock and I grew up with sports my whole life. So if you're not, and if you didn't have sports, then you can substitute this with games or activities. But sports is a big part of my life, and it's something I've kind of taken with all of my units or all of my teams, and it's worked really well to kind of build cohesion. So if you just play a sport or if you play a game, you're going to naturally compete, which is good. Competition is great, but you're also going to naturally be working for other people. Especially if you're in a big group where you don't get to spend a lot of time with everybody in that group, then maybe you split up teams randomly, and people that don't normally work together are now on the same team working towards a common goal. So one of the things I did with one of my groups, one of my teams, is that I played rugby growing up, and we started playing rugby as a unit. And so I had about 85 people in that group, and we started playing rugby. We kind of broke up into groups of 7 to 10, depending on what we wanted to do that day. And obviously for the folks that weren't very athletic, didn't have that athletic background, it was good for them to kind of get out of their comfort zone and do that. But what the biggest thing that I saw is that everybody started growing a lot closer together, because now you're doing a competition, a competitive sport, and it's a physical sport too, to where you have to rely on each other. And going back to number one on the expectations of being perfect in a sport like rugby or any kind of really team sport, you've got to count on each other and make sure that the person on the left and right are doing what they're supposed to be doing for you. So that was a huge thing that worked really well for me, and I hope to take that forward with me. If you're in a sporting event, like you're a coach of a team or whatever, you're already doing that. But maybe find a different sport or a different game. Like let's say you're a football coach, and maybe work on basketball or something like that, just to get them out of what their everyday routine is. So sports and games are huge. They're going to naturally kind of build that team mentality and encourage to be a little bit competitive too, because without competition, you're not going to get any better. So highly recommend that. And then team buy-in's a big one. So one of the downsides of this sort of team and family mentality that I see a lot of times is that it's sort of forced on people. So you really don't want that, because if it's just forced, or if someone doesn't want to be there, then it's actually going to have a negative effect on that team mentality. So what I like to do with my teams or groups is I sort of get that buy-in from them and say, hey, what would you and your families like to do for our family day? Or what would you guys like to do for our free time? I'm not going to say, hey, we're going to do this and you're going to have fun. Like we're going to go to the roller rink and we're going to roll around for 2 hours and then go home. Like, all right, if nobody really was interested in that, then why are you going to do that with your team? So one example I'll give you of that is, I sat down with my staff one time. This is actually with the same group that I played rugby with, which was a really tight, cohesive group. And I said, hey, like, what do you guys want to do, for like a welcome to spring activity and get our families involved? And what they wanted to do was kind of play a sport of some sort. They didn't really care which one. And then they wanted to have like a cooking competition almost. So what we did was we went to the softball field and we got the grills over there and we all made food and sort of, you know, had a taste test and went through and everybody enjoyed it and we all had a good time and the families were really involved and it went really well. So highly recommend that team buy-in. Now it's not going to be the case always. You're not always going to get that, like everybody's going to be on board with the same thing, but if you can get the majority of your team on board, then they're going to bring that rest of those kind of stragglers in and it's going to work really well for that team and unit cohesion. So highly recommend that. Make sure you're getting that team buy-in, not just telling them what to do. So those are 2 questions there that I've gotten or that we've talked about in the past with my students, and just want to share that to supplement, you know, the lessons that we've talked to in the past. So any other questions you guys got, like let me know and send them my way, and you know, we'll cover them in these supplementary lessons. But that's all I got for today. So appreciate your time and have a great day.